Hello friends and neighbors. Well, it's time.
It's time?
It's time?
It's time?
It's time. It's time. It's time. It's space.
No, it's time.
It's time.
It's time. And totally not snowing.
It's time. It's time.
Get on with it.
That was weird. Anyway, it's time to review John Green's newest novel, The Fault in Our Stars. And this review is going to contain spoilers, however, I will not be using any of them until after the intro, and so if you would like the non-spoiler version of this review, just watch everything before the intro. Pretty much my non-spoiler review of this book can be condensed to 6 words. Read this book. Do it now. Seriously, this is an excellent story on the Worth meter. It gets an ultimate recommendation, and what more can I say? Read it. And now, the intro. So obviously The Fault in Our Stars came out with a great deal of anticipation from John Green fans, partially because I think he put out more than his usual amount of self into this novel. And not just because he signed 150,000 copies of the book. No, really.
By the way, I have a red J scribble and no Hanklerfish or Yeti, sadly, but still. Signed copy.
Like most of John Green's novels, I read this book pretty much in one sitting, and like all of John Green's novels, there were some sentences that made me laugh, there were some sentences that I wanted to write down and quote, and there were some sentences, actually most sentences, that made me just ponder John Green's incredible ability to manipulate the human language. The Fault in Our Stars, however, was the first John Green novel to make me sob like a little girl. No offense to little girls, I know the little boys sob too, but Little Girl just sounded better. I feel like I kind of get into this place with a lot of the really good books that I read it and then I think, okay, there's no other book that's ever going to completely change how I view reality. Like when I read Paper Towns, I didn't think it was going to get any better than that. I thought that was going to be the pinnacle of John Green's work. But this book takes a look at reality in a way that I don't think any other story really has. The message of the book is basically that it is entirely possible, and in fact highly probable, that we will make no lasting impact on the world. And that's okay. The book didn't contain a lot of surprises. I mean, when you're writing a book about cancer survivors, it's a pretty good bet that at least one of the characters isn't gonna last until the end of the novel. And I guessed, and I think a lot of people probably guessed pretty early on who it was gonna be. It wasn't like Looking for Alaska where the death just kind of came out of nowhere, but that's not really the point of this particular novel. What's really heart-wrenching about this novel is watching Hazel go from being afraid of being the grenade and hurting people that she loves to becoming a victim of the grenade herself. Hazel spends so much time worrying about who she's going to hurt if she dies, who she is going to leave behind, and who is just going to be all broken up by her death, that she forgets that she can also be a victim of the grenade. It never occurs to her that she could possibly be a victim of the grenade. The Fault in Our Stars is quite possibly the most touching love story I've ever read, and it is essentially a romance. It just happens to be with cancer survivors. But the story shows us that just because these people are sick, it doesn't mean that they are incapable of love. And it has quite possibly the best definition of true love that I've ever read in a book. The romance here is not infatuation or lust or extreme friendship or a series of cliched encouragements. But it's something that will, on occasion, force you to sacrifice yourself and jump on the grenade, and then be glad that you did. John Green doesn't pull any punches with this novel. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you go through the full range of human emotions. But moreover, it's one of those books that you really want to just take a day after you've read it and seriously reevaluate how you look at life. I could go on talking about this book for hours. I could talk about the various metaphors, pretentious or otherwise. I could talk about the various examples of sacrifice that we see in this book. I could talk about Augustus Waters' similarities to Alaska or Margot Roth Spiegelman, or the significance of whether or not Hazel is calling him Augustus or Gus in any given moment. I could talk about how I think the structure of this piece is kind of like a twisty tie, kind of twisting around itself. But I think, in the end, this book, more than any other, really does speak for itself. You can analyze it and analyze it and analyze it, but it's one of those books that I really cannot classify and I really cannot recommend in any other way other than just hand you the book and say, read it now. Except not this one, because this is a signed copy. I'm not going to be loaning this one out. Sorry. It is a must-read in every sense of the word. I already said at the beginning that it was an ultimate recommendation, and I, like John Green, am glad that it is now a thing in the world. And that's my review of The Fault in Our Stars. Until next time, I'll reiterate again, read this. My work here is done. You're an idiot.